Stop walking. I mean it. Just stop. Because if you are doing what most people over 50 do every single day, when they lace up their shoes and head out the door, you may actually be accelerating the very decline you are trying to prevent. I know that sounds alarming. I know it goes against everything you have been told about just getting your steps in, but after spending more than 2 decades studying how food, lifestyle, and movement affect the human body at the cellular level, I can tell you with absolute confidence that the way most of us walk after 50 is silently undermining our muscles, our brains, our hearts, and our independence. A landmark study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine tracked over 78,000 adults between the ages of 40 and 79 for nearly 7 years. What they found was extraordinary. The participants who walked in the most beneficial way reduced their risk of cardiovascular disease by 36%, their risk of dementia by 40%, and their risk of dying from any cause by 24%, compared to those who simply walked without any structure or intention, 24%. That is nearly 1 in 4 deaths potentially prevented just by walking smarter, not longer, not faster necessarily, smarter. And here is what I really want you to stay for. Mistake number 2 on our list today is one that I can almost guarantee you are making right now, this very day, and it is one that even many physicians never think to correct in their patients. It has to do with timing, specifically when during the day you walk. And the effect it has on blood sugar regulation in aging bodies is truly staggering. You are going to want to hear that one. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Leave a comment right now and tell me 2 things: how old you are and whether you consider yourself a regular walker. I want to know. I genuinely read every single comment on this channel, and your answer is going to help me make better content specifically for you. If you are 65 and walking every day and still struggling with your energy or your weight or your joint pain, I need to know that. So drop it in the comments right now and let us get into the list. We are counting down from 7 to 1, with number 1 being the single most damaging mistake I see in people over 50. Let us begin. Mistake number 7 seems almost too simple to matter, and that is exactly why it is so dangerous. Most people over 50 walk in complete silence. Headphones in, music playing, podcasts going, or nothing at all, just the sound of the neighborhood around them. And while that might feel peaceful, what you are missing during that time is something your aging brain desperately needs. Cognitive dual tasking. Let me explain what I mean by that. The brain, particularly after the age of 55, begins to experience what neuroscientists call a reduction in white matter integrity. Think of white matter like the fiber optic cables that connect different parts of your brain. When those cables start to fray, and after 55 they do begin to fray in most people, your ability to do 2 things at once, to process information quickly and to maintain balance, all start to decline together. Research out of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign found that older adults who engaged in cognitively stimulating activities while walking, things like mental arithmetic, memorizing word lists, or having meaningful conversation, showed measurably greater preservation of brain volume in the hippocampus, the region most responsible for memory, compared to those who walked without any mental engagement. The difference was not small. After 6 months, the dual task walkers had hippocampal volumes roughly 2% larger than the sedentary group and measurably larger than the silent walkers. 2% sounds modest, but for a brain that is losing tissue volume at a rate of roughly 0.5% per year after 60, gaining 2% is the equivalent of turning the clock back 4 years. 4 years of brain age recovered through the way you choose to think while you walk. So here's the practical solution. Call a family member while you walk. Listen to an audiobook and pause every 5 minutes to mentally summarize what you just heard. Count backwards from 300 by 7s. Even better, walk with a friend and have a real conversation. Social walking combines cognitive engagement with emotional connection, and those 2 inputs together are extraordinarily powerful for brain health in later life. Pair this habit with a brief mindfulness check. Every 10 minutes, consciously notice 5 things you can see around you. That practice activates the prefrontal cortex and compounds the neurological benefits of the walk itself. And as we move to mistake number 6, I want you to keep the word surface in the back of your mind, because where you walk turns out to matter far more than most people ever consider. Mistake number 6 is about the ground beneath your feet, and ignoring it is quietly destroying the proprioceptive system that keeps you upright and independent. Proprioception is your body's ability to sense its own position in space. Think of it like an internal GPS that tells your muscles, tendons, and joints exactly where they are relative to the ground and to gravity at every single moment. After the age of 60, this system begins to deteriorate. Nerve conduction velocity, the speed at which signals travel from your feet to your brain, slows by approximately 2% per year. By the time a person reaches 75, their proprioceptive response time is often 30 to 40% slower than it was at 45. This is why falls become so dangerous later in life. It is not that older adults become reckless or careless. It is that the early warning system that would have saved them, the split-second signal from the ankle joint that says, "You are off balance, correct now," simply arrives too slowly to prevent the fall. The mistake people make is walking exclusively on flat, predictable surfaces: sidewalks, treadmills, parking lots, mall corridors. When you walk only on flat surfaces, system has nothing to practice against. It gets no training stimulus, and it continues to decline. A 2019 study published in Gait and Posture found that older adults who incorporated uneven natural terrain into their walking routine, grass, gravel paths, gentle nature trails, just 3 times per week, showed a 19% improvement in balance assessments over 12 weeks, compared to no meaningful improvement in the group that continued walking exclusively on flat ground. The solution is intentional surface variation. Walk on grass at least twice a week. Find a gentle nature trail. Walk barefoot on soft ground when it is safe and clean to do so, because barefoot walking on natural terrain is one of the most powerful proprioceptive training tools available to aging adults. You do not need mountains or hiking trails. You need texture. You need slight unpredictability beneath your feet. And pair this with simple single leg balance exercises before and after your walk. Just 30 seconds standing on one foot, eyes open, then eyes closed. That combination of terrain variation and balance training creates a synergistic effect on the nervous system that is, in my opinion, one of the most underappreciated anti-fall strategies in all of geriatric health. Moving on to mistake number 5, and this one is going to make you rethink the shoes you are wearing right now. Mistake number 5 is wearing the wrong footwear, specifically shoes with excessive cushioning and elevated heels, and the damage this does to aging muscles and joints is something the footwear industry has very little interest in telling you about. Let me introduce you to Margaret, 71 years old, from Savannah, Georgia. Margaret had been a dedicated walker her whole life, 4 miles a day, rain or shine. But over the course of her 60s, she developed chronic knee pain, recurring plantar fasciitis, and a persistent tightness in her lower back that no amount of stretching seemed to resolve. She came to one of our affiliated wellness consultations, frustrated and deflated. She told me, "Dr. Lee, I am doing everything right. Why does my body keep breaking down?" The answer was on her feet. Margaret was wearing heavily cushioned maximalist running shoes with a heel-to-toe drop of about 12 millimeter, meaning her heel sat almost half an inch higher than her toes. This changes everything about how the human body moves. It shifts the center of gravity forward, alters the angle of the knee joint during the loading phase of each step, and critically, it eliminates the natural flexion and extension of the intrinsic foot muscles, the 29 small muscles inside the foot that are designed to absorb impact, generate propulsion, and maintain arch integrity. Research from Harvard's Department of Human Evolutionary Biology, led by Dr. Daniel Lieberman, has shown that heavily cushioned high-heel drop shoes actually increase impact forces on the knee and hip joints compared to minimal footwear, because they encourage heel striking rather than the more natural midfoot strike that human biomechanics evolved around. After 50, when cartilage is already thinning and joint inflammation is more common, this impact difference is not trivial. It compounds over thousands of steps per day, and over months and years, it accelerates joint degeneration. I recommended that Margaret gradually transition to a lower heel drop shoe around 4 to 6 millimeters and begin strengthening her foot muscles with daily toe spreading exercises and short walks on soft grass in minimal footwear. Within 3 months, her plantar fasciitis had resolved. Within 6 months, her knee pain had decreased by more than half. Margaret told me it was the first time in years she had finished a walk feeling energized rather than sore. The practical guidance here: do not switch abruptly to minimal shoes. Transition slowly over 8 to 12 weeks as your foot muscles need time to rebuild. Transition too fast and you risk new injury. Transition intentionally and you give your body the stimulus it needs to rebuild strength from the ground up, literally. And the synergy tip here is calcium and collagen supportive nutrition, specifically vitamin C rich foods consumed around the time of your walks, because collagen synthesis in the tendons and ligaments of the foot is significantly upregulated in the hour following mechanical loading. Eating well around your walk is not just about energy. It is about rebuilding the structural tissue that keeps you moving. Mistake number 4 is one that virtually no one talks about, and it is costing older adults enormous amounts of muscle mass every single year. I want to pause here for just a moment. If you are finding this valuable, and I hope you are, please take 2 seconds right now to hit the like button on this video. It genuinely helps this information reach more people who need it. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe now, because we publish research-based content for healthy aging every single week, and I do not want you to miss what is coming. Now let us talk about mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 is walking at a single steady pace for the entire duration of your walk. And the reason this is a mistake comes down to a concept called metabolic adaptation and its consequences for aging muscle. Here is the biology explained simply. When you walk at the same comfortable pace every day, your body does something remarkably efficient and remarkably unhelpful. It adapts. Within as few as 4 to 6 weeks of consistent same pace walking, your muscles, cardiovascular system, and metabolism have adjusted so thoroughly to that exact workload that they are no longer receiving a meaningful training stimulus. You are burning fewer calories than you were when you started. You are generating less mitochondrial growth, and critically, you are doing virtually nothing to combat sarcopenia. Sarcopenia, muscle loss with aging, is one of the most dangerous and underappreciated health crises facing people over 50. After the age of 40, the average person loses 3 to 5% of their muscle mass per decade, and that rate accelerates after 60. By the time someone reaches 80, they may have lost 30 to 40% of the muscle mass they had at their peak. This is not cosmetic. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. It regulates blood sugar, protects joints, drives your resting metabolism, and is the single greatest predictor of functional independence in later life. Lose enough of it, and you lose the ability to carry your own groceries, rise from a chair without assistance, or catch yourself when you start to fall. Steady state walking done exclusively at one comfortable speed does almost nothing to preserve or build muscle after 50. The reason is something called anabolic resistance, the phenomenon where aging muscle tissue becomes progressively less responsive to the normal signals that trigger muscle protein synthesis. To overcome anabolic resistance, the stimulus must be greater. The effort must sometimes be hard. The solution is interval walking, alternating between periods of brisk, challenging effort and comfortable recovery. A 2020 study from the University of Copenhagen found that older adults who practiced interval walking, 3 minutes brisk, 3 minutes easy, repeated for 30 to 40 minutes, showed improvements in muscle function, cardiorespiratory fitness, and blood sugar regulation that were 2 to 3 times greater than those who walked continuously at a moderate pace for the same duration of time. The brisk intervals do not need to feel like running. They should feel like you are walking with purpose. Perhaps a 5 or 6 on a 10-point effort scale where you can speak in short sentences but not hold a comfortable conversation. That is the zone where mitochondrial adaptation happens, where metabolic adaptation is disrupted, and where aging muscle gets the signal it needs to preserve itself. Pair your interval walking with 20 to 30 g of high-quality protein within 45 minutes of finishing. And do not let anyone tell you that protein is just for athletes. After 50, protein is medicine. Leucine-rich protein sources like Greek yogurt, eggs, or a quality whey or plant-based protein supplement directly trigger the mTOR pathway in muscle tissue, the cellular machinery responsible for muscle repair and growth. Walking creates the demand. Protein delivers the building materials. Together, they are remarkably powerful. Mistake number 3 now, and this is one that even my most health-conscious patients consistently get wrong. Mistake number 3 is not warming up the body before walking, and specifically not addressing the hip flexors and thoracic spine before you take a single step. Most people think of walking as a low-intensity activity that requires no preparation. And for a 25-year-old, that might be true. But after 50, the body changes in ways that make a cold start genuinely harmful. Fascia, the connective tissue web that surrounds every muscle, tendon, and organ in your body, becomes less elastic and more fibrous as you age. Think of it like the difference between fresh taffy and cold taffy. Warm taffy stretches smoothly without resistance. Cold taffy snaps. In the morning, especially after 6 to 8 hours of lying still, your fascia is cold, stiff, and significantly less pliable. Your hip flexors, the muscles that connect your spine to your thigh and drive each forward step, have been in a shortened, contracted position all night. Your thoracic spine, the mid-back region responsible for the rotational movement of a natural walking gait, is compressed and immobile. When you step directly into a 30-minute walk from this state, you are not just slightly inefficient. You are loading compromised joints and restricted muscles with repetitive mechanical force, and that combination is a direct pathway to chronic injury. I see this pattern constantly. A patient develops hip bursitis or a recurring piriformis problem, or that nagging low back tightness that never fully goes away. And in almost every case, when I ask about their warm-up routine, the answer is the same. I don't really do one. I just start slow and warm up as I go. Starting slow is not warming up. Warming up means intentionally mobilizing the joints and tissues that walking depends on before the walk begins. Here is what I recommend. Before every walk, spend 5 minutes, just 5, moving through hip circles, gentle thoracic rotations, and dynamic leg swings. A hip circle is simple. Stand on one foot, hold something for balance if needed, and draw large, slow circles with the raised knee forward and backward, 10 repetitions each side. For the thoracic spine, stand with your hands on your hips and gently rotate your torso left and right, going a little further with each repetition. These movements signal to your nervous system that movement is coming, increase blood flow to the joint capsules, and restore elasticity to the fascia before it has to do real work. The synergy here is warmth, literally. On cooler days, wearing a light layer for the first 10 minutes of your walk, even if you plan to remove it, keeps the muscle temperature elevated during the transition from rest to movement. Muscle viscosity, its internal resistance to movement, drops dramatically as temperature rises even 1 to 2 degrees C. That warmth is not comfort, it is performance. And now, mistake number 2. This is the one I promised you at the beginning, and I have seen it transform the health of people in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s. When they finally corrected it, mistake number 2 is walking at the wrong time of day, and the science of why this matters is directly tied to the blood sugar crisis quietly unfolding in hundreds of millions of aging bodies right now. After 50, insulin sensitivity begins to decline. This is a near universal feature of metabolic aging. Insulin is the hormone your pancreas releases to move glucose, blood sugar, from your bloodstream into your cells where it can be used for energy. When cells become less sensitive to insulin, blood sugar rises. It stays elevated longer after meals. And chronically elevated blood sugar, even in the pre-diabetic range, even levels that would never trigger a clinical diagnosis, causes inflammation throughout the vascular system, damages the delicate lining of blood vessels, accelerates cognitive decline, promotes fat storage around the organs, and has been directly linked to increased rates of Alzheimer's disease, which some researchers now informally call type 3 diabetes. Here is the critical insight that most people are missing. Post-meal walking, specifically walking within 15 to 30 minutes after eating, is one of the most powerful interventions known to science for reducing post-meal blood sugar spikes in aging adults. A study published in the journal Diabetologia found that 3 10-minute walks taken after each meal were significantly more effective at lowering 24-hour blood sugar levels than a single 30-minute walk taken at a neutral time of day. 3 short walks beat 1 long walk because the timing relative to food intake matters enormously. When you walk after a meal, your contracting leg muscles act like a glucose sponge. They absorb blood sugar directly from the bloodstream through insulin-independent pathways, meaning they do not even need insulin to pull glucose in. This is particularly powerful for aging adults because it bypasses the very insulin resistance that is causing the problem. You are literally draining the blood sugar surge before it can cause damage, using your own muscles as a filtration system. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was 68 from Phoenix, Arizona. He had been pre-diabetic for 4 years. His doctor had warned him repeatedly. His A1C was creeping upward, and he had tried every dietary intervention his nutritionist suggested with limited success. The one change we made, just one, was moving his daily walk from 7 Os in the morning to within 20 minutes after dinner. Within 3 months, his post-meal glucose readings, which he was monitoring at home with a continuous glucose monitor, had dropped by an average of 31%. His A1C, checked at his next doctor visit, had moved back into the normal range for the first time in 4 years. His physician called it remarkable. It was not remarkable. It was biology applied at the right moment. The practical guidance, take a 10-minute walk after breakfast, a 10-minute walk after lunch, and a 10-minute walk after dinner. You do not need to change how much you walk. You need to change when. If you can only do one post-meal walk, make it after dinner because the evening meal is typically the largest and produces the highest blood sugar response, and because evening movement also improves sleep quality by reducing cortisol and stabilizing circadian rhythms. Pair this habit with a small handful of nuts or seeds with your meals, particularly almonds or pumpkin seeds, as the healthy fats and fiber they contain slow gastric emptying and flatten the glucose curve even before your post-meal walk begins. Timing plus nutrition together creates a metabolic effect that is genuinely transformative after 50. And now mistake number 1, the single most destructive walking mistake I see in people over 50, the one that is limiting your strength, your mobility, your longevity, and your independence more than any other factor on this list. Mistake number 1 is walking exclusively in the forward direction and completely neglecting lateral and backward movement. And the price your body pays for this omission is one that modern medicine is only beginning to fully understand. Human beings evolved to move in all directions. We evolved to step sideways to avoid predators, to back up to navigate terrain, to reach, twist, lunge, and rotate in three-dimensional space. The muscles, tendons, ligaments, and joint structures of the human body were designed for that full range of directional challenge. But modern life and modern walking habits reduce virtually all of that movement to a single repetitive pattern, forward, forward, forward on flat ground in a straight line. The consequences of this directional poverty accumulate slowly and then all at once. The hip abductors, the muscles on the outside of the hip that control lateral stability, atrophy from disuse. The gluteus medius, which is arguably the single most important muscle for walking stability and fall prevention, becomes chronically weak in people who never move sideways. The muscles of the inner thigh weaken, the rotator tendons of the knee lose their conditioning, and the result is a body that is structurally sound in one direction and deeply fragile in every other. Exactly the kind of body that goes down hard when the unexpected happens, an uneven curb, a wet floor, a moment of distraction. Researchers at the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology followed 1,500 adults over the age of 65 for 5 years and found that those who engaged in multi-directional movement training, including lateral steps, backward walking, and diagonal stepping patterns, had a 38% lower rate of injurious falls compared to those who engaged in forward walking alone. 38% in a population where a single serious fall can initiate a cascade of hospitalization, loss of independence, and dramatically shortened life expectancy. A 38% reduction is not a statistic, it is a life. Backward walking in particular has some of the most compelling research behind it. Walking in reverse engages the quadriceps through a different mechanical pattern than forward walking, places significantly less compressive force on the knee joint, and most surprisingly, activates the cerebellum, the brain region responsible for coordination and balance in ways that forward walking simply does not. Studies from Ghent University in Belgium found that regular backward walking measurably improved balance, knee pain, and gait quality in older adults over just 4 weeks of practice. Lateral walking, stepping sideways with control, is the most direct training stimulus you can give the gluteus medius. and a strong gluteus medius is the foundation of a stable, pain-free walking gait. Without it, the pelvis drops on each step, creating a chain reaction of compensatory strain that travels up through the low back and down through the knee. Here is how to integrate this practically and safely. Begin every walk with 2 to 3 minutes of lateral stepping. Move to the right for 10 steps, then back to the left for 10 steps, keeping your feet parallel and your hips low and controlled. After your walk, practice 1 to 2 minutes of backward walking in a safe, open environment. A quiet hallway, a clear stretch of grass, anywhere you can see and confirm there are no obstacles behind you. Hold a wall or fence if you need support when you begin. Progress gradually over several weeks. The synergy here is profound. When you combine backward and lateral walking with the interval training from mistake number 4, the post-meal timing from mistake number 2, and the surface variation from mistake number 6, you create a walking practice that is not just exercise, it is a comprehensive neuromuscular and metabolic rehabilitation program that works with the specific biological realities of an aging body rather than ignoring them. Here is what I want to leave you with today. I have spent my career studying the science of what makes bodies thrive, not just survive, not just avoid disease, but genuinely flourish with energy, strength, and vitality. And what I have learned over and over again across thousands of patients and hundreds of studies is this: it is never too late to change the trajectory. The 68-year-old man in Phoenix who reversed his prediabetes, the 71-year-old woman from Savannah who eliminated years of chronic pain, these are not outliers. They are what happens when intelligent, targeted effort meets a body that is far more adaptable than anyone ever told you it was. Your body at 65 or 70 or 78 still responds to the right signals. It still builds muscle. It still grows new neural connections. It still improves its balance, its metabolism, its cardiovascular fitness. The biology of renewal does not stop, but it does require the right input. Walking is one of the most powerful inputs available to you. It costs nothing. It requires no gym membership, no equipment, no special training. But done thoughtlessly, it delivers a fraction of its potential. Done intelligently, with attention to timing, direction, pace, surface, footwear, preparation, and mental engagement, it becomes one of the most comprehensive health interventions in existence. Your independence in the decades ahead, your ability to travel, to play with grandchildren on the floor and get back up, to carry your own bags, to live in your own home on your own terms, that independence is not determined by fate or genetics alone.